Welcome to the Strategic Project Leader, where we help you leverage strategic project management so you can achieve your goals. Now, here's your host, Fola Alabi.
Good morning, beautiful people. How are you doing today? Welcome to another opportunity to actually share on the Strategic Project Leader podcast. I am your host, Fola Alabi, the Strategic Project Leader. I'm a keynote speaker, consultant, and an educator. I'm all about helping you transform your career, your business, and your life, leveraging my superpowers, which I call strategic project management. Oh my goodness, today is going to be packed. We've got so much. And when there's something great about to come up, there's always going to be some little inks that try to come through the way. But we're ready to kind of offload and give you so much great stuff. I'm coming at you live from Alberta, Canada, and I've got a wonderful guest who's also in Canada as well. So we're going to be giving you the Canadian twist. So you have to just strap on your seatbelt, get your pens and papers because you need to take a lot of notes. On today's show, we want to dive deep to understand how exactly does artificial intelligence, everything technology can actually affect your PMO. And when we talk about that, we want to know, is this going to take care of our jobs or are we going to still be just fine? I have the best person to dive deep into this juicy content. He's a leader, he's an author, he's an instructor. He's written, so many courses. I've even sat through his courses on LinkedIn Learning as well. I had to pretty much sneak in time with him. Hussain has done so much work. He moved in consulting, he came into tech. And the beauty about this is that he's just like a lot of you, where he started his career and he was just pulled into the deep end to manage projects and manage a PMO as well. But now he's now got all the secrets and all the strategies because he's been able to figure it out now. And so he's going to be sharing all of the tips, the tricks, the strategies that you need to be successful. Without any further ado, I want to invite my wonderful guest all the way from Toronto, Hussain. How are you doing this morning?
Hey, Fola. I'm doing well, thank you. How are you? And thank you for having me here.
I'm doing great, thank you. I hope you can hear us clearly. Let us know where you're joining us from, because we want to be able to share something. Goodness, I can see from Washington D.C. Tarika is here. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much, Chisholm, for actually being here as well. So people definitely want to know everything about a PMO. We know that the project management office is like that control tower, ensuring that all the planes landing, which are the PMs, actually doing the right thing. However, the question always comes up over and over is, how can we be set up for success? So just a quick foundation this morning. How exactly do we even start before we dive into artificial intelligence or even technology? Back to the foundations.
Absolutely. And that's a great question. And I'm glad you mentioned the control tower and the right things, right? Because if anybody asks me, hey, Hussain, what is a PMO? I really say that it's the entity, it could be a role or a function within an organization that helps you do the right things in the right way by the right people at the right time, really. And I know there are a lot of rights in there, but that right is very, very subjective. There is no standardized or objective way of figuring out what that right is. It really is a matter of what it means for your organization at that specific point in time, right? So whether it is focusing on managing the schedules, whether it's focusing on managing the budgets, whether it's focusing on risks and issues or reporting or resource management or whatever facets of project management. And if you need to bring in some level of standards, governance, or execution, or even sit at the strategy table, that's all what a PMO really is. And so what you need to really focus on is figuring out for the organization when it comes to, hey, do we really even need a PMO, is two questions. Number one, do we really need a PMO or do we just need more project managers, right? And so if you are looking to answer the question of we want to go ahead and get things done more consistently, more efficiently, more transparently, then chances are you're probably looking to get some aspect of a PMO set up. And whether that's just one person being a one man or one woman show in terms of leading the PMO, uh, or a brief team to make that happen. Or if you just need to get more projects done, and that's the only thing that you need at this point in time, then you're probably better off getting more project managers on board.
Absolutely. You spoke about pretty much almost like initiating a project, because setting up a project management office, it's almost like a project on its own.
Yep,
And there's a lot of groundwork that has to be done within the organization to understand what exactly is the need. What are we trying to do here? Is it a case that we need to ensure that our project managers are delivering projects properly? Or is it a case of the projects are maybe going over budget, so the projects are, not delivering on time or to the agreed quality as well? Understanding the fundamentals will help determine what type of PMO as well, because there are different types of PMOs. But this is really critical for me, because I find that a lot of the times we have PMOs who are kind of set up, and when you ask like the PMO manager, the PMO director, say, what exactly is the mandate? What are you here to do? And it's kind of like, yeah, we're meant to deliver projects. Okay, what was that project charter or the business case that was signed initially? For us to go back and say how success will be measured. And then it gets a little bit gray. So for people who are actually listening, we have project managers, we've got some PMO managers, people who have been given this money to start. What would you say back to the foundation as to what should you ask from the get-go to ensure you're set up for success?
great question. Right, so two things here. Number one is we need to focus on the root causes of project management challenges and not the symptoms. Right. So for example, you could have a situation where projects just aren't getting done on time. And if the projects aren't getting done on time, why is that? Is that because project managers don't know how to manage projects properly? Is it because project managers are over or underestimating projects? Is it because resources are getting shuffled between different projects and things aren't just getting done? Is it because uh, project managers going to decision makers about certain projects and they're taking a lot of time in making those decisions, therefore impacting the project, or even worse, they're making decisions or reversing them? So, what are the root cause, or what is the root cause causing the projects not to get done on time? Getting down to that level of root cause assessment at the foundational elements at the beginning of setting up a PMO is critical for the PMO leaders to figure out what are the things that they need to put in place for the projects to succeed, right? So if you go ahead and focus only on the symptoms but solve for the wrong root cause, guess what? Those symptoms don't go away, right? So that's number one. Number two, like you said earlier, Fola, setting up a PMO is like a project on its own. And for all projects, the one critical ingredient for success is organizational change management, right? So if you are focusing in terms of figuring out how can we ensure that the PMO is set up in from a change management perspective, you have to make sure that you are engaging, involving, informing, and educating your key stakeholders. And when I say key stakeholders, it's not just the executives, it's also your PMs, your analysts, your schedulers, your coordinators, as well as your departmental peers who are going to be involved in terms of what the PMO's future looks like, because they are facing those same project management challenges that you would expect others within the organizations to face. So, two areas again to answer your question shortly. Number one, get down to the root cause. Number two, don't forget organizational change management.
That's right. We talk about the why. Why are we doing anything?
Right.
You need to understand what's the problem. What exactly are we trying to solve? Because at the end of the day, it's a case of, do you want to just get a Ferrari and put it on the road, or you want a Toyota? What
Right.
exactly are we trying to fix? Do we really need a Ferrari, or do we just need someone to just help us kind of put some reports together? Or is it a case that our projects are maybe going off the rails? Because that is actually huge. And when we tie that back into technology, and then we sit up meetings, especially with key stakeholders, and they say, we need a new program. We need to upgrade our IT systems. We need to change and get more people hired because things need to get done. And I am like, okay, what exactly is the problem here? Let's step back a little bit and look in and find out, what are we trying to solve? What's the problem? When we understand that, we can then decide to say, let's even try and do an exploratory project and say, what are the options? What can we actually take on? And then we can determine and say, is this the right piece? Can it actually fix our problems? And so that's a key piece that I want everyone obviously listening to get that, to say, get down to the why, get down to the reason as to what we're trying to deliver and what we're trying to fix. And then we can then decide on what would be the best step to get us there.
Right.
Awesome. Then we're going to talk organizational change. But when we're starting off, I want to start thinking about artificial intelligence now. We know that people are talking about technology, digitalization, and all of that. And now we get a PMO director who has been given a mandate now to say, we have a problem at hand. We want to deliver more projects, probably better on time and to quality. And now, we have new technologies and new tools. And we need to just get some AI tools to get this done for us. What exactly should that project director do in the first place?
Yeah, Fola, that's a million-dollar question, right? But ultimately, it gets down to the confidence that the PMO leader should have in saying, before we adopt a tool, let's go ahead and adopt a data first culture. Before adopting AI, that is artificial intelligence, let's start appreciating another AI, actionable intelligence. Will you act upon the necessary intelligence if and should I present it to you? Right? If that is even not on the table, then AI is just a fad for that particular stakeholder or their executive, and the mandate is baseless. But if there is merit to it, then let's take it a step at a time. Let's use manual processes, human intervention as needed to build actionable data, to build data sets and ensure that we are making decisions based on data available at hand, devoid of moods, emotions, egos, political prowess, or other sort of agendas that are sitting behind the scenes. Now, whether it's in terms of figuring out who the right resources are for a project, figuring out the what priority should we give to a certain project, if a project is to be prioritized, what do we say no to, which initial projects do we pause at, right? Granted, working on those situations manually takes time, which is how many organizations are doing today, but many organizations aren't even doing this, right? So let's get to this point before we start even talking about AI. But now, if the PMO leader is confident that yes, all of these things are actually happening, our leadership, our stakeholders are on board with acting based on data, then let's start focusing on which tools should we be focusing on. Because like any tools out there, AI is also just a tool. Now, whether we're using NLP sort of technologies or MLs or AGIs, it really doesn't matter, right? What matters is for which particular use cases that we want to go ahead and solve this for, and which particular facets of project management that we're looking at, right? So if we were to go ahead and given a mandate to say, let's go ahead and start bringing in AI, the PMO leader needs to be convinced that the organization is adopting and appreciating a data first culture. Once that's in place, then let's go ahead and talk about tools.
I know that the word data is one that we cannot just put on the side. For organizations, leaders, and teams to make actionable decisions, we need the information. And we
Yeah.
don't just need data, but we need the right one. I remember, I was having a conversation with another leader, and then he said, we have data, right? It's so much information. Like, where exactly is it? It's kind of stored on SharePoint somewhere. It's stored in like different tools. Who brings it together? And even when it is brought together, right, it's so outdated. Some people haven't actually got the right pieces in there. And so having that data culture is one piece, But another piece, another angle is how can we get people to really be truly honest about what's going on projects? Because I had to do a post implementation review on a program. And then when I sat with the project managers, the information that I gathered was totally different from what was actually documented. I'm like, what really went wrong here? When we go in and we we dive deep into the root causes, like this is totally different from what the product reports are actually saying, right? How can we ensure that we are presenting the right information? How can we ensure that the project teams are aware that this is a safe space to actually share and learn? Because that's also a shift that I see, especially PMO leaders, kind of stay on the sideline. And when things are kind of going kind of bad and stuff, by the time they come in, it's almost too late. So data first is great, but having the right data and setting an organizational culture where people are okay to share and say, guess what on my project today? The status reports shows that we're going into red because maybe a supplier is really not going to be able to bring this. I've tried everything and I think things are going to go bad. Rather than waiting for things to go totally wrong before they raise their hands up. So I want you to share, how have you been able to like influence a culture within an organization to get them to be more open to share? Have you been able to like get that done?
Yeah, I have. And, it all comes down to setting up of a PMO, to be honest, Fola, because, one of the biggest resistances for people to even have a PMO involved is the level of transparency, right? Now actually have to show what I'm doing and and how I'm doing it and what does it all mean to the project. It's gonna go ahead and shine a light on some of my policies, right? And so in order for you to avoid something like that, you know, the PMO setup really needs to be about what's in it for them, what's in it for those stakeholders, right? Because for any sort of PMO setup, you'll also always have a bunch of people who are the evangelists, who are going to be loving it, who are going to enjoy it, who are going to welcome it, who are going to bring out the pom poms and
That's right.
welcome
Let's
your
do
PMO,
it.
right? Yeah, let's go PMO, right? And then you'll have some people who are always going to be no, you
It's
know,
not happening.
naysayers, yeah, and then you'll have a bunch of people who are going to be on the fence, right,
That's right.
between those two parties, right? So the people who are the naysayers are either lazy or they're avoid of power shifts. They want to avoid power shifts, or they're scared of transparency, whatever the situation, right? uh, when we start understanding who these stakeholders are and really are asking them what are the project management challenges that they're facing today
Yeah.
and why are they facing it and what we'll do about it and when they'll be able to when they'll be able to expect to see the results for that, that is when we make it about them. And when we involve and engage them, we automatically implicitly bring in their skin in the game, and so they are more open to this. And of course this won't happen overnight, but these are the small steps that we need to take to get towards there, right? To your example, right, I also was talking to a VP recently, and they told me that they have vendor partners who are giving a different story to their PMO leader and a different story to her, right, who is the boss of the PMO leader. So to your point, in order for AI to work properly, you actually need to have data that is proper and accurate and trustworthy, right, and repeatable at the same time. uh, right now the role of the PMO is to fish through all of that and translate that data into information, right? And that's not just from facetious or bad intent. It's also you know bad skill level, or sub-optimized reporting. So for instance, some project managers may not have great reporting skills. So PMOs are taking in whatever they are getting from these PMs, and they're like, oh my God, what is this? I can't present this to the executive. So they have to go ahead and fish for more information,
Clean it up.
massage the message a bit, make it more prim and proper, and then send it across. I mean, and that's where we are wasting our time when we could be doing much more value added tasks as PMOs and PMO leaders. That is the beauty and the power of AI, that they can help facilitate a lot of this information cramming, come up with better reporting, better projections, scenario planning, all that good stuff. But to your point, the underlying focus of it is all that the data has to be trustworthy. Now, AI can start becoming, more and more intelligent, where it can overcome things like some misinformation or some exceptional scenarios, but large in part, data has to be solid for it to act upon and give meaningful outputs. And and again, to answer your question, in order for people to be able to be open to this, we have to start with getting them involved and engaged in the PMO setup, getting them and involved and engaged in the outcomes of that, sharing them that, hey, we are there to help them, we are there to solve their problems, this is not for us, and then taking them along the ride, and in and eventually getting them to all of these little changes that eventually gather up to become a huge transformation for the organization.
You mentioned loads of great points there. I definitely want to unpack this. For those who are just joining, we've been talking about AI and the PMO and how we can set up and do that, successfully as well. And we have just raised another part of AI, which is actionable intelligence.
Yep.
And the piece that our guest today has actually thrown in is the fact that data is extremely important. And I always say when you're setting up anything, you need to be able to present what is in need for me, what is in need for you as my stakeholders, and what is in need for all of us.
Right.
In order to sell anything, in order to get buy-in, people need to know, how is it going to benefit me? Am I just going to have to like do extra work? Is this going to add to my paycheck? Is this going to transform my life? Whatever that transformation is, as a project manager, as an accountant, as whatever it doesn't really matter. Even if you're a vice president, you still need to demonstrate value to your stakeholders so they know what is in it for us. And I want to drive this, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence. People get scared, and I've had pieces where people say, this is going to take over my job. But Hassan has just mentioned that we have a lot of tools that are actually out there that can help make your life even easier. Obviously, there's going to be some gives and some takes. We think about automating repetitive tasks. So I tell a PM, I'm like, think about the amount of time it takes you to put together reports, go into different systems, pull information together. But if you have great data that's actually actionable, you can make decisions faster. You can forecast information and make decisions that are actually based on real time insight and information. You can manage your resources better. You can actually predict future outcomes better. And I see this as a transformation even for the PMOs, because my goal is always to help leaders become more strategic. How can we move from just, pushing paperwork to ensure that we are impacting the bottom line, to ensure that we can actually push the needle for the organization, and taking away this rudimentary just process reporting and performance scheduling and all that. I see the PMO even being able to like stand up and say, we now have a seat at a table. We can now actually be there to provide more strategic value to you as a PM, to you as the CFO, and even to all stakeholders as well. So ensuring that we understand the why, ensure that we can actually manage change. I think that's another key piece. But everyone needs to know what exactly is in it for me. What is in it for you? What is in it for everyone? Because at the end of the day, an organization has to be profitable, right? If we don't make money, we're all going to be out of work. And so we have to make sure that our projects are not just delivering on time and on budget, but they are also relevant, and they are ones that could obviously help us move forward in the organization. Now I want to dive a little bit deeper. Can you share a story of like a project you've actually been on or you've actually had to work on that went horribly wrong? And how, what did you do about it?
Well, let me go ahead and open my Rolodex of
That's
failed
right.
projects or projects almost going to failure. Right. So, so let me share a story of a time where I was brought in to actually rescue a project. Right. This was some time back, and that project was for an organization where they had to do a transition of a desktop app to a web app, and they needed to get that app out pretty quickly. But the trouble was that the quality of the app was pretty bad. So every time there was some sort of a release, we had more defects coming out than than, going in than going in, right? And so to turn that around, there were a few things that needed to be really addressed. Number one, what's going on from a quality perspective? There weren't any quality checks put in place. Things along the lines of, unit testing weren't available. Things along the lines of proper regression testing wasn't available. When we had user testing going on, that wasn't really yielding in positive results. So we need to make sure we have some proper checks and balances in place. That was critical. Number two, we had both onshore and offshore teams, and there was definitely a huge rift between the two for reasons that went beyond just the team. And so addressing those, at a manager and director level was something that needed to be taking place, because all the time, we had to face the brunt from the client, but behind the scenes, we had to take care of all of these inner battles within the organization, and that had to be taken care of as well. Number three, transparent reporting, right? Why are we actually having so many defects, right? And not just showing the numbers, but also being able to translate that into why. And now, what are we going to do about it? Because the client had already lost tons of confidence in what we were able to do. So, in order to go ahead and share them our go forward approach and slowly instill the confidence that yes, we're taking the right steps, and now look, this is the progress we're making, this is the reason why we're making the progress, and therefore we can go ahead and be able to get to our desired, um, I would
Outcome.
say, result and release time. Is something that we'll have to go forward for. Obviously, we weren't able to go ahead and release on the target date, but we were able to really go ahead and control the situation without going haywire, and be able to go ahead and quickly fix this up within 3 months. So that's an example of a project that was rescued from total collapse and losing the client to rescue effort within 3 months, and winning more business for them.
That's right. I love that. How you made that pivot, right? Things were going right bad, but we were able to rescue that and turn things around. But the fact is that a lot of people need to understand that everything never really goes to plan. However, I always ask, what exactly are the tools in your toolbox? What do you have that can help you ensure that, just the way Hassan has actually said, he was able to come in and understand what exactly is going on, speak to the stakeholders and say, what are the root cause of what's going on so we can turn things around? And that is a skill, but it's one that you have to be ready to say, I have to be open. You're going to be ready to say, I have to be transparent now to say, where exactly is the problem? Because if there's a leak somewhere, how can we plug it? And it might even be a skill issue, because a lot of times I find that some people are not just skilled enough to get a particular piece of job done, but they are kind of scared to come up and say, yes, I think I'm not really sure, and I don't really know, how to share this. And then things just keep going bad and it starts getting worse. But with people like this, and I know that even when it comes to coaching as well, this is the guy as well to come help you when it comes to resource states and PMOs. And now let's take it a little bit that deeper. So when we then look at PMs and look at the PMO, and PMOs are there like that control tower to get things back on track. If they don't have the internal skill set, they could get consultant like us to come in and say, how can we fix this? But when we get to the foundation of setting up at the beginning, we need to do a form of assessment anyway to understand the why. Why are we doing this? Even what's a level of maturity, right? Are we competent enough to have this in-house, or do we need to get someone externally to come and help us put this together? Or is it a case of we don't even need it at all? We just need to maybe get our PMs trained and more educated so they can do it on your own. And then we can then establish some form of timelines as to when things need to get done. How can we also incorporate technology into all this? I know we spoke about data intelligence and artificial intelligence already, but from the get go, are there things that we can also get artificial intelligence to come in from the beginning to eliminate a lot of the processes for us? Have you found that to be beneficial?
No, no. So number one, I haven't tried that at all.
Okay.
But number two, I would be hesitant in trying it because we are, PMOs are usually being built from in situations of chaos, right? And so when you have chaos, one of the reasons for chaos is lack of transparency, lack of inconsistency, right? And so being able, and that generally results from the fact that there is no information and hence there is no data available, right? Or if it is, if it's not, it's limited, it's tough to produce, and it's irregular, right? So we, in order for AI to even come in at that point in time, it's not going to help much because there aren't any legs to the stool that it can stand on, right?
Hmm.
And so, like I said, even if before we get into AI, we have to focus on a data first culture, right? Even before we get to the data first culture, we have to recognize that we have a problem and we have to appreciate it and we have to look for it and solve for it if we're serious about growing our organization, right? And so the discovery process of that method, the discovery process of what it is and what that mandate is for the PMO has to be very, very human based.
That's
Because,
right.
like I said, that has to be focused on change management, which requires all elements and touch points of human beings,
That's
right?
right.
And that's something that honestly, uh, yes, it touches upon human beings. That work also needs to be done by human beings, right? So, for instance, I can go ahead and I I coach PMO leaders all the time for doing this whole current state assessment. And what I tell them is number one, when you interview your stakeholders to figure this out, you need to do this on a one-on-one basis. So don't do it in a group setting. Do it on a one-on-one basis because this is not just a way for you to figure out the whys, but also establish some level of relationship with that person. Number two, do not delegate it to anyone. So if I'm saying to them, don't delegate it to any human being, I also mean don't delegate it to any artificial intelligence, right? Right.
Very
So
personal, but it's very important, right? Yeah, that's right. I agree.
yes, because again, let's say, if I'm a PMO leader and I have my right hand person who I trust really, really well and who understands the organization really, really well as well, and I have 30 interviews to do, I can say, hey, you know what, why don't you take 15? Why don't I take 15? Now, imagine I go ahead and interview someone, but Fola is interviewed by my right hand person. How does that make Fola feel? Well, why don't Hussain interview me? Am I less important? Right
And
off the
that
bat,
already
even
brings a
Fola,
rift from the beginning, right? Because that already
exactly.
creates something in their minds and like, oh my goodness, yes.
Exactly, exactly. Now, what that means, well, the interviews are all being done, and of course, you're doing the assessment, and then based on the assessment, you have recommendations and you're touching upon all of these change management aspects. So then the question becomes then, well, if I take that as all of those data points, can I run through that some sort of an AI based database or something that can help me spit out some of the recommendations? I would say at this point in time, it's an overkill because a lot of the PMOs that are getting set up from scratch are struggling on the foundational elements, right? So if you're a consultant who is coming in to do this work, and if you aren't able to go ahead and make those recommendations based on what you're seeing, then you're probably in the wrong line of work, right? Or if you're a PMO leader who can't infer the assessments and turn into recommendations, then they probably need some help with that. And that's probably another person who can help them quickly assess that without the need for artificial intelligence. Because I can tell you, there are a lot of reports out there that'll tell you, you know, um, here are the stats on PMO failures. Here are the stats on here are the first few things you need to do. Blah 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 blah. But we all know for any organization, there is always a unique situation. There is
That's
no
right.
one size fits all situation, right? And so you just got to go ahead and take that in place and make that happen. So when it comes to the setup and the evolution of a PMO, I break it down into three very basic phases. Number one, get things done. Number two, get things done consistently. And number three, get things done consistently and efficiently. It's that shift between getting things done consistently to getting things consistently and efficiently is where AI can truly help. And when I say AI, I mean artificial intelligence. It's actionable intelligence. The appreciation of all of that needs to happen in the first two phases, right? And that's where the change management piece comes into play.
I think that's a very, very big one where we actually know that there is a space for everything.
Mm-hmm.
But at the foundation and at the core, it takes that human interface. And so, especially when someone asks them the question to say, am I going to be losing my job? The fact is that computers and technology will always be there and they're going to keep evolving, but they can never replace humans, though. There's the piece about the human interaction we're having today. If you're having this with a computer or a robot, it's going to be different because they could process information, they can think, but there is something that I think God has actually done that just makes our connection and having that human piece set things apart. And so, especially at the beginning of setting up a PMO, computers cannot replace the role that PMO leaders bring to the table. But the
Correct.
key, as you've just heard, is you just have to be prepared. You have to ensure that you have, the right knowledge. You have to show up. You have to ensure that people understand that you only need to make life better. You have to show that transformation, right? It's not a case of goodness, you're gonna have to make five more reports, and then guess what? On Thursday, I'm gonna be asking you for like two more progress updates. And then we need to have another dashboard created because we have an executive meeting. And then guess what? Another FY. After that, then I'm gonna be coming to Pride and see what you're doing. People are just gonna be like, there's gonna be a wall up there. The project management office, it's actually meant to be one that brings about excellence when it comes to project and portfolio delivery. It's
Right.
all about ensuring that everyone is successful. You come in to increase the rate of success, not a case of adding more workload to everyone. No, when transparency comes in place, you actually know what's going on and you know how to actually get things done better. So
Right.
when it comes to organizational change, and it's one that gets a lot of resistance and pushback. I know someone asked a question about the level of detail when it comes to report. We're going to answer that question shortly. But I want to dive into organizational change management. Relationship building is one key piece. How have you been able to help project managers and PMO leaders understand how to cultivate great relationships? Because getting buy-in from senior management is absolutely critical. Because we find out over 50% of PMOs, if not even more, fail or get disbanded within 3 to 5 years. How can we ensure that from the get-go we have an excellence team that will be there for the long haul? Because I see the role of the PMO being there at a C-suite level where we are driving strategy, where we are there to ensure that organizational strategic goals and objectives can actually be met, because we think about projects that get created, they are based on organizational goals, right? But it's just a case of a lot of the time, strategic leaders create goals, they just kind of hand over projects at that another level without that insight where PMO leaders are not aware as to what's really happening. But I see a world where in a couple of years, there is that role right at the very top seat where from initiating from business case, to strategy, all the brainstorming, they are there right at the table to say, yes, we should do this. These are the prioritization metrics, and this is why we should also be doing it. And then we can cascade that information right down to the PMs, the analysts, the testers, or even the construction workers, whatever that can actually be. And how can we build these relationships, and how can we create this actual knowledge where senior leaders understand the why behind the need for the PMO?
Well, that's a great question, right? And so the one way to answer this question, or one word, is really managing expectation, or that's two words, right? So I would say one word is expectations,
That's
right?
right.
So what are the mechanisms to build that up? So for any leader, especially when you have heads of state, etc. The
Yeah.
first 100 days
I'm on
are
mute.
critical, right? They have 100-day plans that define the rest of their 3.5 years of tenure,
That's
and
right.
how
That's right.
they are viewed and perceived, and the performance forecasted is based on the first 100 days, right? And so that is not a natural expectation of PMO leaders. But when a
Oh my
PMO leader
goodness.
focuses, hello,
Can you hear me? We're here.
I can, yes. No, I thought I heard you say, oh my goodness.
Oh no, 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 no. Everything's fine. I'm here. We're here.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, so if when everything when a PMO leader takes that onus on himself or herself of developing that 100-day plan, that can mean a significant appreciation and meaning to what they're about to do, right? And how do you build that 100-day plan? It's working with those executives and key stakeholders and PMs and coordinators, etc., to understand what project management challenges that they're facing and why are they facing them, right? Because many people within organizations either don't know about PMOs or have a bad rap about PMOs because of what they might have heard, what they might have seen, or what they might have read, or they may have had bad experiences in the past with previous PMOs, and that's fair, right? And so, as a PMO leader, it's your job to control the narrative and turn things around. And so, in order for you to be able to do that, don't just go to the person who hired you and ask them, hey, what would you like the PMO to be? And just do that. Because at that point in time, when you do that, you just become a messenger of somebody else's vision. What you need to do is develop that holistic vision, that holistic mandate that comprises of not just that person who hired you, their vision, but really the needs and the wants across the organization. And that is when you start getting to turn heads. That is when you start getting people to understand what it is you are doing. That is when you get people to understand what the power and the value, the benefits of the PMO is. That's when you get them to understand how you're actually making them a difference and how you're actually helping them. And that is how you gain the buy in of all your stakeholders.
You know what? That's so key, and this is actually a skill that a lot of leaders need to obviously adopt when it comes to any form of change or anything that has to be done. Because there are times where other initiatives also come up, even within the PMO, within the business, and you feel, how do I really start? Taking a strategic perspective and creating that plan that encompasses not just your own sphere of influence or your own mandate, but understanding how it also affects all the business units, how it affects all the projects, all the programs, the entire portfolio, and then presenting a case that brings everyone together. That even eases the organizational change management, right? Because that way you already have like change agents saying that I see the benefits, for my
Right.
department. I know how it's going to benefit me. Yes, I'm going to give you 5 resources, 5 FTEs done, because everyone wants to do a great job. I believe that. They just need to be shown, like, how do we actually navigate this together? But not a case of, I am going to get more work and then this is what we're going to do and this is why. Another tricky piece as well, which I found is, this top down approach where we get this memo comes from the CEO to say we're doing X
Right.
and it's going to start yesterday. And that means you need to get ready, and that's the new transformation
Right.
change. And then people are by their computer to say, oh my goodness, I'm going to lose my job, or oh my goodness, right? There's going to be a new team, and now I don't know what I'm actually doing. But great project managers, great PMO leaders, actually great change managers, right? Where even before anything comes, they need to be able to explain the why, to say, guess what? We have this exciting new change coming. This is how it's going to touch your role. This is, the transformation it's going to create. This is why we need to be excited. But how can we really what's it called? How can we coach, managing up? That's a key piece because PMs can deliver on their projects. They can just focus. PMO leaders can say, yes, I have my money, I can actually drive it. But managing up is where the value comes. Because that way you can get stakeholders to, come on board and get excited about what you're doing because people struggle. How have you been able to manage up effectively?
I think that's a great question, and that's a great skill for all PMO leaders and PMs to have, right? So when it comes to PMO leaders, the number one thing that they need to be driven by is really focusing on what's how their PMO will actually benefit the organization and control that narrative, even if it means going against the rift, right? So just having that innate confidence is what is critical, and building that Bible for the organization and then holding others accountable for it, right? That requires a bit of perseverance and a lot of self belief, right? Uh, I know that in many cases that is already built in PMO leaders, but it's difficult for them to bring it out. And so that is where things like either one-on-one coaching, group coaching, being in like-minded environments can be very helpful, where they can speak to someone, bring up challenges, and not be judged by or just be a venting or sounding board for someone, right? So that is something that can be very, very helpful for PMO leaders. For PMs, I think the most important aspect is for PMO leaders to build a PMO as a safe haven where project managers and program managers can come and share their concerns without being judged or ostracized. I also want to make it a point that PMO leaders create the PMO in a way where failure is embraced and accepted and is turned into a learning opportunity, and that PMs are supported along those lines, where the PMO has the back of PMs. That way, they can go ahead and be confident, go out on a limb, make an effort, and then turn things around. And if they fail, the PMO backs them up, gives them the ammo to make things right, own up to their failures or mistakes, and then don't make them again. Right? I think those two aspects are critical for the success of a PMO leader and a PM. Right? Even if things are going against, even if the PM speaks up against the PMO leader, if there's data based, then make that happen, right? So the third thing that I would just say is that when a PMO leader is building his or her team, there should be a bit of introspection and understand what are the strengths and where are some of their gaps, and build a team whose strengths are their gaps. So you are focusing on building a strong, turbulent resistant PMO, can rely on each other, know that they are going hand in hand, and make it a success. I can give an example of a client who's a fantastic PMO leader and has a super apt right hand person who I know can be a PMO leader in any organization, right? And the PMO leader here is someone who is a quick decision maker, extremely quick. But the other person, the right hand person, is someone who is a bit more analytical, takes a bit of time of thinking, and then makes the decision. So now, as a rule, they have created a rule for themselves that the PMO leader will not make a final decision without running it by her, because they know that the PMO leader has made decisions in the past that have been really quick, that have come back to haunt
That
them.
has cost them so much.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So hats off to the PMO leader for recognizing that and giving that level of power and authority to the right hand person and living by the rule. But at the same time, Hats off to the right hand person for managing upwards and having that confidence to call him out as needed. So she will support him no matter what in public, but in private, where nobody else is looking, they'll have a powwow. And when they
Mm.
come out of it, they're a more formidable and stronger team. And that is how strong PMOs work.
We have done it again. This is time for project lifestyle. How can we think about all this and apply this in our personal life? It feels as though Hassan was just writing my brains because the particular tip I'm actually going to be sharing today ties into this actual mindset. How can you, as a leader, be comfortable? I even say being like the least most knowledgeable or most experienced with the people around you. You need to create a team where can actually resist the turbulence, so you can actually learn more from. I see myself like a sponge. I'm always there because I want to learn, I want to absorb. And when I have people around me who are just not, they can't even challenge my thought perspective, I don't learn anything different. I take a step back. I'm like, I'm in the wrong room. I'm in the wrong place. You need to develop a strategic mindset. I need to start thinking beyond just today. Get a team, get people around you that will actually challenge you and become better. So, as you apply this as well, even in your personal life, you think about the decisions you're actually making. How can I create a mindset and a shift where I can start making better decisions? How can I start, creating long term goals that will help me overall? The team and the people around you need to be knowledgeable that can actually challenge you even more. Define your goals clearly, but when you do that, ensure you bring your spouse, your partners, people, your friends. They say you become, the average of the 3 to 5 people you circle with on a regular basis. So who are the people you're actually connecting with? Are they people that actually challenge you? Or are they people that you feel that you are the rock star when you're around them? You need to rethink that. Always analyze the options you have every single time. Think about this. How does this apply to me now? How does it affect me in the long term? The plans that I have, is it just for my short term gain or is it for the longer term gain? The people around me, can they help me propel that goal forward? Even your partner, sit and have this conversation and say, let us create a plan that encompasses just our careers. What do we want to achieve in the next 5 years? Is our income going to get us there? Or do we need to get maybe a side hustle? Do we need to invest more? Do we need to create something different? But sit down and have these conversations. Change will not happen until you decide that you want to make that change happen. But it means that you have to be strategic. You have to get the right people around you, get mentors, get support, ensure that you are planning because believe it or not, when it comes to recession and inflation, there's always going to be something. As soon as one piece ends, there's always something. But the beauty is that when on the two sides of the coin, when someone seems to be losing, another one seems to be gaining. Oh my goodness. Hassan, what do you have to add?
Oh my goodness, that is a fantastic, fantastic way to make it happen, right? Building the strong team is amazing. And when you say project lifestyle, bringing it to personal life, I think with project management, it is something that we actually practice more in personal life than in our professional lives, or rather we've been doing it more earlier than in our personal life than our professional life, whether it's uh, a weekend project, whether it's building a chair, whether it's cleaning up the basement, whether it's setting up the house for a holiday party, whatever it is, whether it's an event. We're all been managing projects all along. It's just the nature and the complexity of projects change when we bring them to the professional setting. But like we've learned in a professional setting, having a strong team, thinking proactively, bringing those risks up, being transparent about progress, and keeping and stakeholders happy through basic expectation management can yield success in any environments, right? And just the way you have checklists to-do lists, the little calendars. You have all these other tools, PPM tools, which are now embedding AI, which is all just tools. These tools are there just to help make our work, our lives better, make project management and PMO more fun by taking out all the boring work and the redundancies out of the way, right? So use that, think of AI and other people like the way you think of other PPM tools. They're just a tool. They're not gonna take away our jobs, they're gonna make our jobs even better.
Embrace change. I think that's it. Embrace technology. Because when I see something new, I'm just
Indeed.
like, I get like the video I shared yesterday. When you see a new kid on the block, you're like, goodness, is this person gonna come and take the swing and the slides away from me? No, you just be open and say, I want to learn. What do you bring to the table?
Yeah,
How can I learn from you? Having a shift and creating that totally changes everything. I want to
indeed.
say thank you so much for everyone who actually joined us today. We have done it again. Oh my goodness, I can't believe how time has flown by. There's so many questions. We definitely need you to have you back. We thought it was going to be one session. We probably need to have multiple. I want to say
We can
thank you.
do
There are
that.
just so many questions. I want to say thank you to Rika, to Kabi, Samuel. Oh God, Hiket. There's just so many people that actually join us today. If you found this session of any value, what do you do with something like that? You share. Sharing is caring. Let someone know that there was something great about today. It's all about data intelligence, right? As someone just said now. We want to share this knowledge. We want to ensure we can actually impact life. We want to transform and make the world better than we found it. Guess what? Even your boss might need to see this. So they need to understand how to, manage and share things and do things differently. Thank you so much. But I want people to know, where can they find you?
So that's a great question. People can go ahead and find me here on LinkedIn. Hussain Bandukwala, and that's, I think, LinkedIn/in/Hussain Bandukwala, or go to my website parwaazcc.com. That's PARWAAZCC.com. You can find me there. You can also find a lot of resources that I've produced over there, completely gratis. At the same time, I'm also a LinkedIn learning instructor. I have a couple of courses out there. Setting up a PMO, that's one. And how to successfully set up a PMO is another. And over 120,000 PMO and project leaders have already benefited from it. Please go ahead on LinkedIn Learning and check those out as well if you are looking to either set up a PMO, optimize it, or lead it successfully.
That's right. He said it. I have listened to that course as well because I bring just select people to come and share on the show. It's been informative, educative. You need to check it out. Connect. And the beauty about it, when you connect, let him know that you're on this podcast. I want to know
Yeah.
you were here when you connect with me as well, because there's also some freebies that we're going to be sharing, links to some great resources that you can actually get to up level your PM career and create that path to project leadership. You don't want to miss it. I want to say thank you, but I always say, remember, you are the best project you can actually ever work on. You are your life's project manager. Invest in you because the ROI on investment in you, goodness, is astronomical. It helps you not just expand you as a person, but creates a better community. It creates everything else that you've always desired. I want to say thank you so much for being here. Remember, same time next week, we're going to be having a great session with a panel talking about a power skill. You do not want to miss it because it's going to be exciting. I cannot wait to see each and every one of you on that show. Thank you so much and have yourself a great one. Bye bye.